Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask an Author. Today, I have invited a very special guest to talk to us a little bit about mental health issues that we have as creatives. And who else would I go to but Elizabeth Cummings? Thank you so much for having time with me today to talk about this really important subject.
Thank you for having me on, Michelle. It's always fun being on your show and also chatting with you. What else would we want to do?
I don't know. So I really wanted to pick your brain, I guess, a little bit today, because we've had a lot of people in our community who have had just double whammies at the moment. They're in lockdown, already they're feeling a little bit stressed, and then we're getting a real sense at the moment with the publishing industry that there's not a lot of happening and people are facing a lot of rejection. So I guess the first question I wanted to ask you is, first of all, how important is it as a creative person to guard your energy and really look after your mental health?
Well, I think for each and every one of us, self-care is where it all starts, and it's vital. I think, you have that old adage, put your own oxygen mask on first, and you need to be able to take care of yourself so you can take care of others and the other things that you need to address. And we know that, but do we always do that? And then when we get the left fields coming in and lockdown happens, or there are other factors impinging on us, we go into that flight survival mode, and our upstairs brain flips up, and we start operating on that basic survival, where we go back to habits which aren't always helpful, and we also don't look at the bigger picture. We lose the capacity to sometimes make rational decisions, and we hang on to things that might not be so helpful. So it is important. That being said, I don't want to just be sending the message out to everyone, I'll go take a bath or light a candle, because that's not what we're talking about here.
No, not at all. So what do you think are some practical things that we can do that can help us kind of get through just until we're feeling in that space where we can be creative again?
Okay, so what we're doing here is we're jumping right into how to manage in situations that are left field or not going our way. And we all like to be in control, and we all like things to happen nicely, but that's not real life. So part of it is having a realistic optimism. So going along, not kind of thinking, oh, something bad might happen. So that's why the optimism part. And realistic is that, well, it might take time for something good to happen, but if things and barriers come in the way, or unexpected in things that inhibit what we're trying to do, we're not going to collapse in a pile and say, woe is me. We're going to try to take a step back from that and say, what's going on here? What can I do? What can I control about this? What can't I? And where you can't control things, don't butt up against that. Focus on the little nuggets of hope that you have, of times where you have been able to achieve against adversity, and also look for the other aspects in your life that you can control.
And how much do you think rejection plays a part on somebody's success in this industry, like the ability to handle rejection? How important is that?
Well, you see, this is a very interesting question, because I think what has to come here as creators is a humility. We are coming with our own perspective of the world, whether we're a creator or not. Actually, we all have our own lens, and that lens is coming from cultural background. It's coming from cultural in a wider sense. So whether what your gender is, what your religion is, what experiences you've had within your lifetime to date, where you're living, there's various lenses that add up to your own particular unique worldview. And that's wonderful. It gives us that diversity. However, our worldview doesn't always marry up with those of others. So it's understanding in the context we're talking about, for instance, that if I have, for instance, my picture book on eating disorders, if I try and pitch that to a commercial publisher like Lake Press, for instance, that isn't necessarily going to be something that fits into their framework in a commercial level. So for me to expect success there is unrealistic. But if I go to, say, another publisher like Big Sky or EK, who are known for their ability to handle tough topics, then there could be more chance of negotiation, discussion of how that book might sit in their framework. So that's an example of realistic optimism, and also having that humility to realize you can't expect everyone not necessarily to like what you do, but to want to take it on. So you have a passion for, one has a passion for an idea, and that's made into a manuscript or an illustrated book. That then is pitched to various publishers or agents. However, their agenda isn't to share your story as such. Their agenda is to develop a business whereby they have many authors, narratives, nonfiction, whatever it is that they're working with, and how that works for them in a business way. So they have to operate as a business, whereas we're coming with that creation. And it's beautiful when they interweave, but it doesn't necessarily happen just like that.
That's right. And I think because what we do is sometimes really solitary, you forget that when you start getting out there into the publishing industry, you become part of a team, or almost a cog in the wheel, in yes. the system sort of thing. So it's about finding that personal passion and balancing it within a business framework, which some people who are creative find really, really difficult.
And you know what, when these ideas that we've nurtured into what we see as a polished form, there's something we've created that's come from within. It's deeply personal. And so when you are getting feedback, even in manuscript assessments, so that's several steps before you actually pitch to a publisher, it can feel hard for people who are not ready for that critique or that feedback, because what they are expecting from that is not what really the exercise is about. So, for instance, often there are manuscript assessments and critiques within the writing world, and we love to jump on and make opportunity of using these. And I think for early career and emerging authors and illustrators, sometimes there's a misunderstanding of what that is. But once you realize what it actually is so incredibly helpful, because it helps direct where you can get your work to. So it's not you personally being rejected. So I think, going back to your question, what can we do about being resilient and handling rejection? It is approaching those areas where we are sharing our work, and so putting ourselves out there, approaching those with the openness and the curiosity of what do you think about this, and how is this, and what could it be, how could it be better, rather than tell me it's wonderful. Because we could just go to our family and friends who love us dearly, and we'll say, oh, you know, I really love your ideas and I think that's beautiful. And they will do that, but that's not what publishing's about. It's work, it's business, it's a professional setting. We have to come to it as a professional, even though we're bringing something deeply personal.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying before about you need to educate yourself before
yes.
you start in the industry. You need to know, what publishers are looking for, especially when you're spending all this time sending a specific manuscript to them, and limit the amount of rejection that you're going to get because you've taken the time. And that's something that's really empowering as well at the moment, when there's so many things that we can't control.
Yeah.
Building our knowledge and learning about the industry and giving ourselves the best shot at getting that yes is something that we absolutely can control. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think when we do feel that we can have self-agency and we can advocate for ourselves and we can have control in aspects of our life, then that allows us that sense of ability to grow from that. And where we talk often about mental health and mental wellness, often where people feel challenged in their mental wellness is where there are other factors impinging on them, whether there isn't control. Hence why something like COVID and the consequential lockdown and ramifications there have made it so hard for people, because it's acted as a pressure cooker for all this other stuff going on. And so where there's this whole environment of uncertainty, one wants to seek certainty. And then you think of the publishers and the bookshops and so on, they're trying to literally survive within that. So their decision making is very difficult to make in terms of they're projecting months and years ahead sometimes with the big publishers, and yet they're in a very uncertain time. So I don't envy their job at all. And I think it's like then coming back to yourself and saying, well, what can I do here? I can go back, I can polish. If I can't be pitching because people are closed, then perhaps what I do is I work on that portfolio of my work, or I look at my website again, or maybe I start looking at how to podcast and share my work and ideas in a different way. And these ways then help us maintain our creativity and also maintain an element of control in what is an ever churning, turning period of time for everyone.
Yeah, I know that I have struggled a lot to be creative over the last 18 months. Like any time that I have struggles with mental wellness, anxiety, really that self-doubt that creeps in, it's really hard for me to be creative. Have you experienced anything like that as well?
Absolutely. And I think where the times I've found where you get a sort of step forward or a certain growth, and it's kind of like that aspect of stepping into a new land, or on a computer game, a new level. So you maybe have you've had your first book published, or you've been signed to an agent, or whatever it is. And suddenly you're on this new level playing field, and you're going, do I fit here? You're having to reassert yourself. So in those sort of circumstances, I've found that, and I suppose that's a little bit kind of like an imposter syndrome, am I worthy of being here? Rather than, I actually am here. So that says something about the achievement today. And you see that quite a lot actually with HSC students. So when I am speaking and working with students on how they're feeling and mentoring them or whatever it is, they often they say, it's just so hard, or I can't do anything. And what's coming through is that they've got no reason to feel that they'll fail this particular exam, because they've excelled to date. But every time they step further and further up the education framework, their self-doubt really takes hold. And I think it's this whole thing of, there's been so much success, and there's almost then this expectation as well below them that if they fail from there, or fall from there, or don't pass from there, or don't pass at the level they wish to pass at from there, what does this say? Because they're so high, falling from a greater height in their eyes, rather than the confidence of, hey, I got here. To date, I've never failed anything, so what's telling me that I will? So in our setting, I think that these sort of little negative thinkings can come into and we all have thousands and thousands of thoughts a day. And these thoughts are positive, negative, neutral, what have you. So you might get a negative thought. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a little self-checking. It's what you do with it. So if you then go, I can't, so you just can't get out of bed because it's so overwhelming, then that's not really very helpful to one. Or if it's sort of sitting there and gnawing away and it's blocking your creativity, that's not obviously a very helpful space to be in. But it does happen. And for me, I find, when you have a little win or an achievement, it really makes you kind of go, is it okay that I'm here? Or am I doing enough? Or someone else is doing more? And you have to just kind of take yourself and say, self, breathe. Let's come out of that space, because that negative thinking is not helping me. And all it is doing is holding me back. And that's where we see where it impacts our creativity. It's like, well, how can I think? When you put a word down, you go, that's just a word. Anyone could write that word, So it becomes right down to the very words on the page. And it happens to all of us. And it's knowing that we're not alone when that's happening. and it's very human when that's happening. And just a little bit of kindness to self, that recognizing it's not the end of the world, it's happening. Let's just take a moment, step aside from it, and then come back, perhaps.
Absolutely. I resonate with that so much. And I think that's why conversations like this are so important, because, you're not alone in feeling and thinking like that. And it's really important that we acknowledge that this mental wellness is part of the journey, especially when you are moving further into your creative career. So
yes,
I think it's really important that we're not scared to talk about stuff like this and acknowledge that there are going to be times when we're not okay and we feel like that we're not doing okay, and the only way to get past that is to have a conversation. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you and talk to you a little bit more about what you do with your mentoring, what's the best way they can get in contact?
So I'm elizabethmarycummings.com, and we have in fact, you're one of our wonderful experts on Literary Lived. So we have a forum where we have lived experience experts who have particular specialization in connecting literature with lived experience, and particularly within the children's literature framework. And each of the experts are not only creators, but have a wonderful depth of knowledge in very niche fields, and some of them quite mental wellness focused topics. So you can connect with us through literarylived.com for any specialized support and mentoring. And definitely connect with my website. Be delighted to speak, and watch this space, because I'm working on a series now of non-fiction books for adults that are to do with mental wellness. So hopefully we'll be able to talk about those soon.
Yeah, and so needed, and really, really current for what's happening in the world now. Yeah. So thank you so much. I always feel so much better after I talk to you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. And I can't wait to talk to you again really soon.
Lovely. Can't wait. Take care,
Thank
Michelle.
You much. Bye.
Bye.